say there's two other EOD teams that are running at the time. There's this dude named Master Sergeant Daly, and there's this dude named Garza. So one team would go out for like 24 to 48 hours. And by go out, I mean you'd be manning the radio listening for 9 lines. So anytime a 9 line would come in, so for folks out there that haven't been there, a 9 line is a reporting procedure. When a unit out in the shit, whether they're patrolling, doing whatever, they would find an IED or they would find a weapons cache. They would get on the horn back to their CP and give a 9-line report, right? It's like their location, suspected type of whatnot. So we would get those 9 lines. We would radio over to the security element, which at the time I got there was reservists, and they would sort of be your PSD to take the EOD truck out of Fallujah to go handle business. So I got handed an iRobot PackBot, which was like fresh out of the box. We never trained with this thing. We didn't have them in EOD school. Like we had the giant Johnny 5 robot in EOD school. And they're like, hey, here's this fucking robot. Like we're going to go do roadside IEDs in approximately like 3 days. It's going to be our turn in the rotation. So figure this fucking thing out. So how it was going to work was JT was a driver. Gunny Davis was the vehicle commander. So he'd be on the horn, taking down 9 lines, like writing on the glass with a grease pencil. I was sitting in the left rear vehicle, and I was at like demolitions and just, the slack man on the team. And then we had our doc who was just, did everything that needed to be done. Right. So I figured this robot out, and basically we kind of talk our way through it. And how it works is, so we would get a 9 line, and we'd drive out to meet them, link up with whoever the on-scene commander was. Gunny Davis would go to that guy and start getting the what's what. As soon as we would pull up, we'd break the robot out and on the tailgate of the truck, fire it up, and we would start prepping demolition charges or getting ready to prep a demolition charge, right? To me, this was the preferred method of doing business at the time. We just blew everything up. Mm-hmm. Like we weren't trying to, our team, like we weren't trying to recover shit. Like the whole forensic thing hadn't really become the new in vogue. So to me, what made sense was, you move up, get eyes on the thing, destroy it, look for any obvious secondaries, and then get back on the road. So our AO was basically all around the city of Fallujah. So basically we would we were responsible for Route Mobile, which covered the east side of Fallujah, and Michigan, which later became Fran, which kind of ran Fallujah, and that's where the Blackwater Bridge was. It was on Michigan or Fran. And so basically we would just do roadside IEDs all around Fallujah, because what was happening in the time that we were only sort of marginally aware of was they were doing the preparatory actions to assault the city, right? So what they were doing for this time around is they were prepping the South, like doing feints, right? They would push up with LAR, get in contact, break contact, right? They wanted to make them think that we were coming from the South again. So, we're just kind of cleaning up IEDs as they do these operations.
What kind of IEDs were you seeing? Like, what was the common thing? Were you seeing like stuff that was pretty well hidden? They used to like camouflage stuff in sidewalks. They used to camouflage stuff in curbs, or just throw it in dead bodies of animals and stuff like that. What were you guys seeing? Was it the 155 rounds and stuff like that, or different kind of bombs?
It was primarily 155s with either a long-range cordless telephone as a trigger or a command wire for a trigger. Nobody had really started fucking with pressure plates in Iraq. It was all command of some sort. So the command wire would run out to some firing point, or they would have long range cordless telephones, which is basically like your old 1990s ghetto cell phone. It's actually a regular telephone. It's just run into a base station, right?
Yeah.
So they would either plug the base station in with a battery, like a motorcycle battery or something to power the whole thing. And then one way they could do it is call the base station, which would ring it. Or if it was the phone downrange, one of the ways they could do it is like the page telephone thing, where you're like, hey, where's my phone inside my house? They hit that thing and it makes the phone ring. And you're like, oh, there it is right there, right? But that would be the bomb. Those little walkie-talkies, so like your little Motorola push-to-talks.
Yeah.
Like the little blue and black.
Yeah.
Those were pretty popular. And
just keying those would set them off, right? And how they had them set up?
Yeah, so some of them it was like that.
That's so crazy.
So you had to start telling the guys, because a lot of guys didn't have Marine Corps issued PRR radios or any sort of squad radio of their own because, I don't know, reasons. And so a lot of units on their own dime or whatever invested in those little Motorola push to talks, right? So we had to kind of tell guys like, hey, dude, if you happen to be on an IED frequency, channel, when just because Murphy hates you, you're gonna set off an IED. Like, I don't remember if there's any recorded instances of that happening, but it was definitely on the threat side, right? Yeah. If you were on target for any longer than like 45 minutes, you were going to get attacked, right? So as soon as the truck stopped, I would start my stopwatch, because like 45 minutes into it, you're either getting direct fire, from the city with small arms, or they're going to start launching rockets and mortars at you. Our security element at the time was like Johnny on the spot. These reservists, a couple of them had like duck calls up in the turret, and they would like duck call to each other. I think they were from Louisiana, and like those dudes, like if anything like push the cordon at all, they would just open fire. So they had been there for longer than us. I don't know how many casualties those dudes had taken, but like their patience with risk was zero by the time they became our security element.
Were these Marine reservists or Army reservists?
Yeah, they were Marine reservists.
Okay.
I think Garza's team had the record of 9 lines in like a 24 to 48 hour period, which is like 9. So like 9 IED calls in a day. Every 3 days, you answered anywhere from 1 to 9 IED calls, and that's why they're like, my brain is just like one long like scratching record of get out of truck, set charge, drive robot down. So basically the way we came up to do it that we thought was the best was once we knew where it was, I would send the robot down there to recon it real quick, right? So as soon as I even had the vaguest idea of where this thing was, I would start punching the robot down. I was the team robot operator. I would locate this thing. Most of the times they weren't well hidden. It was ground surface laid. It was behind a bush. They were mostly artillery rounds. I didn't bother trying to disarm the thing with a robot. None of that bullshit. Once I figured out where it was, I just brought the robot straight back, and JT would hook the charge on it. So the way we did it was we had a remote fire detonator, military piece of gear. I forgot the nomenclature for it. It's like the 132 or something like that. Basically, it's a remote detonator, right? So we took a little a wire spool that the Israelis came up with. It's basically like this little tiny black piece of, it almost looks like an old Kodak film case, but there's like 100 yards of wire in that fucking thing. So we had that taped directly to the remote detonator with the lead wires coming out. So we would attach the electric detonator onto those, sync that into a block of C4. The block of C4 had a zip tie taped to it at the top, and that was like the little lanyard that we put on the claw. So on the robot's claw, which is weird because it goes sideways like this on the PackBot, I would put the remote fire detonator on the inside and the explosive charge on the outside, and then close the claw. Drive that thing back down there, and when I got down to the site, I would open the claw, drop the C4 onto the IED, close the claw, like back the robot up slowly so it's paying wire out, and I would give it, a good standoff, 20, 30, 50 yards, depending on what the charge was, and set the remote detonator on the ground, and then bring the robot all the way back. We get everybody locked up in their trucks. We get them to hunker down, get dudes in defilade, and we'd fucking crank that thing off and blow it up. I'd get the robot back down there, make sure there was nothing else big, do a quick little cursory sweep around, and then that was it. Pack our shit up and get out of there.
How often were you seeing secondaries blowing up that you didn't initially see?
During that time, 0.
Okay.
During that time on those roadside responses, we didn't see.
They hadn't started doing that yet?
No, not really. Okay. There were daisy chains where you're like, oh, there's 4 or 5 of these things tied to deck cord, So we were able to really get in, get out. We got it down until it was a pretty solid routine, except for this one evening. And this was kind of our I don't know, our white elephant night or some shit like. So it's evening time, it's our 3rd or 4th call of the day.